Excuse me a second. That's why nobody ever comes here. I thought it was because, people were scared that they would have to run into me and nobody wants to come at me. I'm the best, right? But no, it's because no time traveler in their right mind would ever come to this event. Those dicks put me here as a joke!
Huh?
So ease yourself in it somewhere and you got yourself a winner.
Yeah. To Ken, to your point about Hal Jordan, in my head I was I don't know how you guys thought about the film Maverick, but I'm thinking of like Hal Jordan at that stage in his life, maybe.
Yeah.
Wait, are you talking Top Gun Maverick or the Mel Gibson Western Maverick?
Yes.
Top Gun.
No, Top Gun Maverick.
Yes.
Just confirming.
That one.
Yeah, the Top Gun Maverick, where it's like all he knows is a certain way of life, but he's now beyond kind of where his prime, and he's like, I don't know, maybe Jon Stewart's a younger guy in the business, and he's like, I don't know what the dynamic will be, but I think having two helps give you kind of a comparison of two sides of a coin of what it means to be a Green Lantern.
No, they're just gonna have the washed up Matthew McConaughey in a green suit.
Yeah,
imagine if Hal Jordan
imagine if Hal Jordan just sit there
and just CG Green Lantern shoots on him. Done.
What if it is closer to True Detective, where the whole, like, at the beginning of every episode it was like them being interrogated by other cops?
Yeah,
it's on Oa, and then they're just sitting there, and like you see Hal's just kind of like phased out. He's like, all the crazy shit, and then like they're talking, was like, yeah, he lost.
That would actually be kind of cool. That I would watch.
You're
negligent, got me back on the show.
Irresponsible. Bad guy get the job done.
Department. All right, detectives, let's get one thing straight. I do not agree with your methods. You're uncontrolled and you're negligent. But by God, you get the job done. Congratulations.
Yeah, I'd watch that. I'd be into that.
Patent pending.
What was the villain? The eluded villain in True Detective? It was like the Yellow King or the Yellow Crown or something.
Something like that. I looked at
it. Was some like voodoo story. I forget what it was exactly.
It turned out it was just some dude.
Yeah, but it would literally be a yellow king guy, and they could allude to like the yellow lantern.
They're really just going to recite
directly.
It'll work. A couple pew-pews there, and you got yourself a show.
Sorry, I kind of got really excited about that.
No, but the sad part is we're not even going to get to Atlanta show because going by the list, I feel like Pat said, Creature Commandos is where they're going to stumble. Because it's an animated thing that he's so getting behind, and I don't think the audience is going to be there for it.
So it's going to have Rick Flag.
Not to the level that Warner Brothers needs it to be.
I mean, people are there for Poison Ivy Harley and Ivy, or Harley. No,
not to this
Harley Quinn.
Correct, but it's not to the level that they need it though.
Yeah,
right. That's fair. But I think that they can also not they.
And Harley's a known quantity.
As Creature Commandos is also their first animated, they don't necessarily need. I think it's something that they think that they could put out there to at least get something in production and get it done, and then it's something that people can. Oh well, did you not watch it? You got to go back and watch it because people are gonna be like, oh well, Waller references it, and so that's why. I think that they can expect a little bit of a sleeper on Creature Commandos for any number of reasons, but then Waller can be like, oh shit, you didn't watch that? Dude, you got to go back and see that's where they did this, and Waller can kind of feed that. It can be something that they.
You mean something that they okay?
Yeah, either Waller or Peacemaker. I think it'd be cool to see like an animated Peacemaker jump into the show as well.
Yeah, and also,
even Peacemaker though ties in to the old universe. That's where Snyder keeps spreading out. That's the reason you keep running up against.
Does Gunn Suicide Squad count? Sorry, Ken, go ahead.
Yeah,
I think so.
Got to keep his wife employed.
Well, yeah, and also, but here's the thing though: after Flash, anything can still be connected, but we can wipe away the connections and just say like, Flashpoint.
I think the direction they'll also go with Creature Commandos, while not being the same kind of like flagpole that the Harley show has had on HBO, it will be in that vein of like a more adult type of show with like an Amanda Waller Peacemaker, something to like attach to be like, oh, I know someone in this or something. And then you get to explore like King Shark and Kite Man and all these cool like things, and that becomes like the, oh my god, I gotta watch Creature Commando this week. It's like this rated R animated thing. I think that
Okay.
that would be the way to sell me on it, because I've been
But that-
loving the Harley show.
But it's so weird that you're working backwards from that premise though, because if Creature Commandos is coming out before Waller, it's like, all right, we threw this out there, and then we're gonna throw something else out there and hope that it reels back people in the other way.
Right, but we're trying to we're working off of what you're saying to us, Kareem. So we're trying to explain
I just
how
think
we
it's gonna
can
be
see
the
it.
first.
Right, but
Yeah.
Regardless,
No, but I think they'll
we're going to
use-
watch it regardless, though.
I'm hoping that they take some existing creative teams that they've already worked with and bring them back for other projects. And I'm hoping, like, for the Harley project, they would bring some of the writers or animators or some folks from that and kind of recapture that, but with a more, like, we're working this towards a larger thing now.
So
Also,
You
is-
guys kind of did your own show, and now we want you to do something more with that ties into stuff that we're going to do for future projects. That's
and-
like the only thing that I know from a known quantity standpoint. I'm like, or they could bring in someone new. I'd love, like, some of the biggest things I've loved from MCU lately, and it might take a while before they might decide to do, I don't know how they'll decide to do this, but kind of experimenting with interesting creators. Like, I think that pushes like cool projects. Seeing someone like Todd Phillips get to doing a Joker, I didn't expect that combination, for instance. I'm not saying it's for everyone, but it's like, oh, this was an interesting combination. You saw something come out of it. Matt Reeves doing the Batman stuff was an interesting take. Doing things like a little bit different rather than like, let's just have like one director do like 80 things or something. I don't know. I like that. I
Yeah.
like having some more of these creative, like the Daniels, for instance, from Everything Everywhere All at Once. Imagine them working something. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but that was like, they're
Yeah.
really like, they mess with multiverse stuff. It's probably the best multiverse thing I've seen lately.
It was.
Oh,
I
you didn't, so
actually
you didn't
is.
see Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness? Oh, I see.
I mean, there was just too much going on in that movie. Just too much. Too many
Yeah,
There's
universes.
too many
So
multiverse.
much.
Can't keep up.
It's a kaleidoscope of universes.
All right. One jackass question, then one real question. Jackass question: who does Chris Pratt voice in the Creature Commandos?
Booster Gold.
All of them.
He's gonna
Booster Gold.
appear
Yeah,
as
he's Booster Gold. He's Booster Gold. All right, we got that cast. Second, and on a scale
I'm sorry,
of
I'm
one
just sad because that's actually could happen. That's the part. that I'm
could
upset
You
about.
mean
definitely
gotta happen.
happening
Yeah, it's-
immediately,
yeah.
like right now. Yeah.
Fuck?
On a
gonna do it in his
scale of
Mario
1
voice,
to
too.
10, it's me, Booster Gold. I sound like Linda from Bob Burgers.
I would actually laugh if he voiced Skeets instead of Booster.
That'd be kind of cool.
That makes. I'm fine with that. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you Superman Legacy will get made?
10 being super
10,
confident.
it's happening 100%.
9
give
for me.
it-
5.
I'm gonna give it an 8.
I was gonna go about 6, 7.
I gave it a 5.
Yeah.
I mean, well, let me clarify. As far as Superman Legacy getting made, I don't
Yeah.
know. It's as far as a Superman movie happening.
Nope. Superman Legacy.
But we don't even know what Superman Legacy is. So saying
I
that-
understand that.
It's gonna be James Gunn working on it creatively. Like he
Yeah.
said, I think he gave his credits on the writers line.
and I think he pointed towards some story, which I'm like, what did he point towards? He pointed
All-Star?
towards
All-Star Superman.
All-Star, which I'm
Yeah,
like,
well, at least the cover of it.
which doesn't make
Yeah.
a lot of sense. Like Superman Birthright is a better like Superman starting point. Like a
Superman,
young
All-Star
yo-
Superman, it's an ending point. It's good.
Right, exactly. That's my point. Like, why would you? I can see a Superman movie getting made, but if you're saying Superman Legacy, but it's focused on young Clark, then that's not All Star. That's Birthright. That's a
But-
young. That's his. Go ahead.
He probably did not pick the picture they used.
Fair enough.
I-
Yes, he
I
did.
don't
No,
know.
no,
Comic,
he
though.
tweeted.
He
No,
picked the
tweeted
comic.
Yeah, he picked the
Yeah.
comic. He
Yeah.
put
My
it out there and
thought,
tweeted it.
because
He's,
I
like,
honestly, if when he alluded to the All-Star thing, I was like, why isn't this a 10 episode HBO show? Like,
Yeah.
each episode
Or
covering.
why isn't Cavill already in it?
But it's also already an animated movie too.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Okay, you're gonna have to go ahead and forget all that because none of that. Anything
exactly.
pre this does not matter.
But that's my point, though. Why point towards All Star and say we're gonna do young? Because I'm correct in saying that he said it's a young Clark Kent, right?
yeah.
Because it's a
Yeah.
it's a cool looking image.
Well, so
That's it. That's it. And it's just
But even the image
performative.
isn't a young Clark.
Yeah.
It'd be different if they took one of the pictures from that and said, "Oh,
Well, I
this
can't
is
really
this is
decipher
the young
an
version of
age
Clark." But
from that
Yeah.
artwork. Frank Quitely has a very interesting artwork.
Yeah, they're all lumpy mashed potato people. You've heard me say
Yeah,
this
but
before.
he's an older lumpy mashed potato person.
Yeah, but my
I mean,
get-
I don't. How do Kryptonians age exactly?
Yeah, I actually.
everyone in all his books look like mashed potatoes. Grab X-Men New Class. Or I'm sorry,
It's not like he's got
New
a
X-Men.
wrinkled face. I don't.
No, they're just lumpy, not wrinkly. It's so weird. They're all mashed potato people.
Yeah, it is.
God.
No,
Well,
no
I'm
real
wondering,
definition
what
there.
if it's not a like, because do you guys, okay, let me ask this before as a preface question.
It's inspired by
Do you think it'll be a loose adaptation, or do you think it'll be a direct adaptation of like All Star? Because
It
if
can't
it's
be. I
loose,
don't think it can be a direct adaptation.
Neither.
And it shouldn't
It's
even be a loose.
neither.
it's inspired by
well, the
it's
reason I'm
very-
saying is the kind of end point I could see that with is with All Star, the beginnings of it is like he gets overcharged or supercharged or whatever, right? So
Mhm.
what if he out the gate is like, I know I only have so long to live, so
remember those
that
times
becomes-
where I was a young boy across Kansas,
no, not that way.
and it's
Just
like
like
A flashback,
I have to do
flashback
the
movie.
best I can
Yeah.
with the time I have, and that just becomes the through line with whatever he's motivated to do.
I'm assuming the inspiration comes from the wacky scenarios that he gets into as being the plots for the movies. Because those are some good stories to pull from, as far as like the miniature planet that he tries to like fix, and all the hero stuff that he has to accomplish. Like those stories, like Samson and the rest of them, are fun stories to like you can pull movies from that aren't this like brooding Zod fight, destroy the city kind of stuff. Like these are fun lighter stories that have fun endings.
Yeah, man.
If I had to assume, that's what they're trying to say, that they, because
Sad
again,
Superman.
to start off the series as I'm dying, it's like, all right, well, we know there's a time limit on this franchise.
yeah.
Well,
and the
then that
Superman.
that takes us to whatever the end point of this chapter what could be.
His death.
Well, it could be he's like, I'm gonna sacrifice myself or something. I don't know. No?
You mean to stop an unstoppable force, and then they'll have a big funeral, and then something will come, and then they have to go ahead and
Bring
bring him
back the
somehow
mullet.
through the magic. Is that what we're doing? We're just gonna do Snyderverse again one more time
Without
through?
Snyder, though.
Well, I guess because
But then-
it's not necessarily that he has to die. It's just that he thinks he only has so long to live, and he's gone through maybe so much of his youth thinking like, oh, I'm an and however old I can be, however old, and then it's like that lights a fire. Is like, live in the present, do the most you can
Okay.
every day, kind of thing. Like that would be my message if I were to
If-
go that direction.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting. I think if you're gonna be funny and turn things on their head, you flip it to where he thinks he's gonna die, like you said. It turns out he's not, and it turns out Lex Luthor is the one that basically rigged it, so he thought he was gonna die, so he could say, "Look at all you could do if you really wanted to." Then middle finger.
Or he just starts making meth.
Oh, we're gonna break. Well, HBO doesn't own Breaking Bad.
There you go. Shaves his
doesn't
head,
know
wears a
Breaking
hat.
Sets up a meth lab in Kansas. It'll
Yeah.
blend right in.
You're goddamn right.
I mean, his Fortress of Solitude looks like it could be a meth lab. So
All the blue crystals there, yeah.
So
Yeah.
here's the question though. With Superman, in this new universe that we're looking to build, Superman, why are we focusing on a story that's going to be his finale unless there's going to be another Superman to fill his shoes? Like, and Superman being who he is, he's like in Apollo, like a god, or like Apollo from the Authority, who's exactly just Superman in a multiverse. Like he's just.
but
the
that
Elseworld
Superman is
Superman.
gay.
Right, but that's my point though. Is like we decided to make an Authority movie and say like, oh, we're gonna have Elseworlds. It's like that's just what the Authority is. Apollo is Superman. Midnighter's Batman. Like these are
But
all characters who are just like analogs already. So then you're gonna be like, oh, well, here they are. It's like,
Well-
why?
Well, are you saying he is Superman in the sense of his powers and capabilities?
His power
Yeah.
level, yeah.
I would say then the differentiating factor would become who is Superman as a person and his beliefs. Like that will be the distinguishing factor of like, Superman isn't what you can do, it's what you choose to do.
Right.
Yeah,
My
but
point though is
to Ken's point though, we saw that with Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Like
I
you
think they
saw
just-
Zod and you saw Clark. So now we're gonna do Apollo and Clark or whatever again, just without slow motion.
I mean, yeah, but
Potentially.
I would argue that like there's a lot of many stories get told just like you presented in a different context, and maybe it's more of like, how does he get to it this time kind of thing. Like they've retold the Superman story how many times already? Like he has to inspire. It's like they maybe it's over time. I think with James Gunn, he has a way of doing it through a softer, more indirect way with some of his, like, it catches you off guard is what I mean. Like it catches me off guard a lot of times when he catches you with like a right hook to the heart kind of thing.
I get that, but my issue, I guess, is that why are we having in a universe where we're saying like, hey, we're gonna try and have a mainline idea of who these characters are, and then we'll have Elseworlds. Why bring in Elseworlds characters into our mainline story? And that seems like such an odd, because this is also the same guy who gave us Brightburn, and it's like,
You didn't like that Superman?
that's my point though. Is like we've seen other takes of Superman in the world, but now you're gonna bring another one in there as well. It's like, and then you're gonna have like, then at that one point you bring in Mr. Majestic, and then you're like, oh well, we have another Superman, and then we're gonna bring in Sentry from DC because we just want another Superman. Like, I don't need to see. I don't.
That's
need to
DC's fault. That's not his fault. DC
don't
needs
need
to get away from Superman.
That's on him for choosing the lineup. He's the Kevin Feige of this world, right?
What you're saying, he could not choose Superman?
No, I'm saying he could not choose the Authority.
Oh,
okay.
or
to put the Authority in their mainline DC. You can do the Authority, and I think that's definitely stories you can tell. But then to say like, oh, they're also part of our, because after New 52, they did bring in the consolidated universe. But it's like it's convoluted right now. Like it's ridiculous reading some stories like, oh, this is a world that has both this character and this character, and I'm like, it's reason I kind of don't like Hyperion in the Marvel universe. It's like, why do we have Superman here when we have other characters to tell these stories? We don't need to keep having them in the main Marvel universe. Just like I don't feel we need Apollo in the main DC film universe, because if you want to talk about confusion of like, oh well, is that Batman the same Batman as this? It's like, well, it's just Superman, but in white and yellow as opposed to blue and red.
I think it's really going to be just how they behave, like what they act like, what their personalities are, what they choose to do, what they choose not to do. Superman being kind of like a younger, more Boy Scout. I don't think Apollo is going to be a Boy Scout in any sense of like his personality. Like there might be some through lines, but I don't think it'll be. I think when you look at the two of them side by side, maybe in terms of power you'll see that, but in terms of like how they act, you're like they're two very different people.
Apollo's never made one soapbox racer, not one.
Well,
I think the other question
personalities I give you there
comes about when the introduction of them. Like this is the thing I've kind of been running back in my head is, does the Authority come together in that movie alone, or are they going to be sprinkled throughout? Like, are their characters going to be sprinkled throughout these other projects? And when they're introduced in these other projects, are they introduced as, I don't know, Justice League facing? Like when they first introduced, you're like, oh, Apollo's going to be the Superman. Like he's the nicer version of Superman. And then when we get to their movie, we're like, oh no, these guys aren't what we thought they were. We're going to need an actual Superman. We're going to need someone else to take on these people. And that's when you start to slowly introduce Batman and Superman and the Flash and the rest of them to go against these guys.
If you told me,
again, this is gonna take forever as far as the project's concerned, and I don't know if he's got the time. I think Warner Brothers is gonna be like, get it done or chop it up. Yeah.
But if you told me, looking at the lineup of what was announced, that he woke up 3 days before and said, "Shit, I gotta come up with a lineup." Yeah, like it's a little all over the map. You could also, for the Authority film, just go full Build-A-Figure. The first 10 minutes or last 10 minutes of every DC movie, just introduce one character separate from the film. Like, hey, our post-credit scene is 10 minutes introducing this character, has nothing to do with this. So now you got to see all of these to catch up so you know what's going on in the Authority.
So, I mean, I wouldn't say Build-A-Figure, but it actually kind of pulls to comics having backup stories. Yeah. Comics, there are many comics that have that, like, oh, hey, this last 3 pages is a story that's going to continue on through all of these issues, but it is like you have your main story and then like you've got your little, I mean, I guess they're usually longer than just a snippet, but they are a few extra pages of stories that they could then be combined together to make one full story. So backup stories have been a mainstay in comics for quite some time. So that's an interesting take.
If a post-credit scene is a page, we're talking 4 or 5 pages.
Yeah.
So
I don't know why we're all talking about this when we could be talking about season 8 of Game of Thrones as a whole series. Guys, lost guys, come on. Who's with me? No? You guys are assholes.
I'm, I guess, open-minded with it. I hope it'll be interesting.
No,
Like,
it's going to be season 8. It's going to be season 8 of Game of Thrones. That last ugly season no one talks about.
If they do the knife
we're
thing,
doing stuff and
if they
ruining it.
do a choreography moment where it's like drop knife in the other hand, I'm gonna lose it. I'm honestly gonna lose it.
Who
You have
has a
people
better
stop practicing
story
it.
than Wonder Woman? Just get Peter
Not
Dinklage
Wonder
out
Woman
there.
in it.
I guess I'm starting to see a through line here. I don't know. Maybe I'm just trying to I don't know if it's me trying to connect things, but it's like I was just looking at a brief blurb of the I'm going back to the Authority just for a brief moment. I'll come back to Paradise. But like the Authority is
Trying to pull you guys back away from it.
is anti-heroes with good intentions who go to extreme measures due to how broken the world is. That's like what I guess the text version of what they have written. And then you see, so that's gonna be like placed. You got Amanda Waller and her groups all doing like these little black ops type of like covert ops things under the rug. But all these other heroes are kind of
Creature
like
Commandos too.
And Creature Commandos, yes. And I think Paradise Lost might be like, this goes beyond the world of man. This goes into the world of Themyscira, that things are ugly, and that from that there will be like a need for folks to be above that, to like to inspire, to bring people to a higher, I don't know, to some moral compass.
Would you say things are gritty?
It could be.
Maybe it should all be in black and white because it's so nihilistic. I think maybe saying
that's what I mentioned. That's what I mentioned to Ken, is that between Creature Commandos potentially, Waller, the Lanterns, the way that he's pitching it, the Authority, Paradise Lost, and the way that he pitched Supergirl and Swamp Thing, I'm like, these are all things that could have been in the Snyder universe the way that it was sold.
But
like they aren't moving away from like, oh, we don't want it dark, gritty, and depressing and nihilistic. We want it, hopeful and colorful like Marvel. No, they're just doing all the things Snyder would have done anyway.
Well, I'm guessing
just
kind
without
of
him.
going back to what you were saying earlier of like it, looking at the lineup, it looks kind of like haphazard. I'm wondering if it's like we're setting a narrative bed of like that existing grittiness, and from that we need to bring out these characters that are different to contrast and be like, no, this is what we need to aspire to. This is what we need in this universe or world. And that's where Wonder Woman will be nice. From Batman will be born from. He's like, I need to be a father to this assassin son of mine.
I need to
give him. Superman needs to grow up to give a moral compass to a crazy world that's like, oh yeah, the Authority will just blow up that group or something. I don't know. Like, there's other ways that are good. This is me like pie in the sky thinking like what.
Interestingly enough,
I can see that.
The kind of context of that is similar to Kingdom Come, and that the superheroes had lost their way and were just more violent and dark and gritty. And Kal-El returns because they're like, the heroes have lost their way. We need to show them how to be heroes again. And that's when Kal-El comes back as Superman. So that's kind of an interesting parallel there. Also a note too, Kingdom Come is the kind of first appearance of Damian Wayne, but he had a different name in that but he was still the son of Bruce and Talia. And that was actually his first appearance too, but he wasn't named Damian at the time. It was Ibn-Shah. I'm mispronouncing it. A friend of mine, Jason Bischoff, could definitely correct me. But yeah, I'm trying to remember his name and how it was pronounced, but that was his first appearance. It's because he was dating Nightfire, the daughter of Starfire and Nightwing.
Okay.
But yeah, that was that. It's just
like that at all.
That's what's picking off my head.
I don't like that at all.
Are you a Barbara and Dick
No, it's just
Shipper?
the whole thing makes me uncomfortable because I know there's not related, but they kind of feel related.
Yeah.
Well, Kareem, that's what when you were talking about Themyscira and Paradise Lost, I was thinking of like, oh yeah, it is kind of going to be twisty, grimy, ugly political stuff, and I'm like, it just seems like every project we were talking about, I don't know, just like I was trying to be like, why are they doing this? And that drew me
Yeah.
to a leap.
Yeah,
So-
no, it's a much better leap than I stopped at the cliff. I'm like, why are we doing this? And then stopped, and you were
I'm
like,
like, "Woo,
because
I hope.
Because that's
for
yeah,
tomorrow."
exactly.
that's
a
that's
leap of
the
faith.
springboard. That's the like, oh, we've seen how dark they've gotten, and now we take them to the now we see how bright they can shine after seeing them in such darkness.
So
It's a possibility, but I don't think their execution is there. I don't have faith within DC. I mean, okay, also on the to be clear too, I'm the guy who hasn't seen the first Shazam movie. I haven't seen Aquaman. I haven't seen a lot of DC stuff because they haven't wowed me. Because they
fair enough.
haven't brought me in. Like they haven't
he
made
hasn't seen The Dark Knight. He didn't see Batman Begins. He didn't see Batman
He doesn't know what
Forever.
a Superman
He
is.
never watched the Batman TV show. Only thing he watched, Batman and Robin.
The best one.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, when you're comparing to that, everything else pales in
Yeah, it's
comparison.
just trash.
No, he's just watching Teen Titans go over and over.
Can we make
And?
Booster Gold gritty too? Can we do that?
That's the thing is like Booster Gold is. I mean, aside.
That's gonna be the standout fun thing, I think.
The thing is though, we're not going to be able to.
Hopefully.
we reached the heights of what Booster Gold could have been when we had him as potentially played by Donald Faison in the CW verse.
Those dicks put me here as a joke. They did. No, they did. I've been played.
They had Donald Faison as Booster Gold, okay, folks, and we let it go. We could have got Ted Cord played by Zach Braff, and we could have had Blue and Gold doing their thing. But yeah,
You gotta let the Cubs go, buddy. You gotta let it go.
I'll let it go when Donald and Zach let it go.
I think they did when they retired the show.
No, they
Nope.
have a
They're in
podcast
commercials
called
together.
Yeah, they're in commercials together. They're in music videos together. They do movies together. The podcast is called Fake Doctors, Real Friends.
Yeah.
Listen
I
to it
know.
on iHeartRadio.
Hey,
Oh.
stop promoting other podcasts on our podcast.
Like the weekly DLC. Every week, the streaming live Thursdays and I don't know what other day. I just think it's just
Thursdays.
Well, here's my question
Yeah, Thursdays.
for Paradise Lost.
Yeah.
Do you think people, the same way that I'm assuming a lot of people are watching House of the Dragon, how long do you think people will wait to see Wonder Woman show up before they say, all right, I'm out?
I don't. Okay, I'm gonna jump in first. So for House of the Dragons, what were we waiting for there? Because you drew the parallel. So what were
Well, because we're trying to see the through lines of how we got to the end of Game of Thrones, right? So people are watching to be like, oh, this is who will eventually sire or father or parent Daenerys, and you're putting all the connections together.
But they're
For people
they're
who
so far in the past, there's no like, oh, and here's the birth of the Mad King. Like we won't see that. Like we won't see the Starks in the way that we see them. Like that's so far.
we see their houses, right?
Yeah.
We see their houses kind of, but
And
we-
that is the through line, is what I'm saying. Like for people, it isn't like we're going to be starting brand new with the whole. Like people aren't watching House of the Dragon going like, oh, this is entirely different from Game of Thrones. They're just saying this time frame is different, but we want to see the connections because in Game of Thrones they reference a lot of this stuff already.
Yeah.
So now we
Oh.
just want to see the reference. We want to see the stories that they were talking about.
right.
I
mean,
think
that's,
we'll see
that's-
more tie-ins to actual gods. Maybe?
Yeah, we get more mythology. Like, oh, look, that's Ares. I know Ares. He's the guy who was on this.
Like I
Okay.
guess the Game of Thrones references there, but I'm thinking a lot like it's gonna be kind of like Spartacus and those types of things where
Oh, not that Blood and Sand show, because that was garbage. that was a
Whichever one-
shitty
So
Cinemax
much
porn
sand
thing. That
was
was.
thrown in slow
which
motion.
one was the one? Was Ian McShane in one of them?
I
thought
mean,
he-
I wouldn't put it past him.
I thought he was in one of them. Okay, never mind. But I
Wasn't he
think the
in Game
through
of
line's gonna
Thrones?
be like Zeus, Ares, all that stuff.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But my question is, again, if it's billed as Themyscira and kind of the prequel to Wonder Woman's thing, I'm just wondering how long will people be like, oh, I'm going to watch this show with no Wonder Woman in it?
Maybe it'll be other things that
Well,
are
it's a
not Wonder
film.
Woman. like
It's
if
a.
there's
I thought it was a show.
or sorry, in the show, what if there's like threats to Themyscira that are we know are like, oh, that's I don't know, apocalypse or whatever else.
Okay.
That would be
I
my
mean,
way
that's
of
a
being like,
possibility.
it's this is why we left the world of like we isolate ourselves, kind of thing. And
Gotcha.
it touches on, and yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think. That's the that'd be the only other thing I can think of.
I'm just saying, like, if you're going to be having a show, it's like, hey, let's watch, Pa Kent figure out how to, like, balance a mortgage before we get to Superman. How long are people going to sit there going like, oh, let's watch him build out this farm? Where's the alien from space?
I mean, I don't think it's a fair comparison, but it's also like, look at how long did Gotham go before we got to Batman? Did we ever get there? Like,
But they had a lot of like, here's the Riddler before the Riddler.
Exactly.
Here's this guy before.
Yeah.
It was almost
They
like
showed everyone except Batman.
yeah.
right, but that's my point though. It's like I don't think it's a comparable comparison. To be like, oh, how soon until we get Diana? Like, we don't ever have to get to Diana because if you're comparing to the House of Dragons, we'll never get to Daenerys. So if we just learn about, I mean, there
I think
are
they'll just want references of some kind, is what Kareem is
Yeah.
saying. Like, what are we referencing to that keeps them in like this is DC rather than this is just island fun.
Greek mythology.
Yeah.
I mean,
That would-
that's then then the question is, how soon until the first Easter egg compare? Like, I'm trying to get a better understanding of like what do you expect to be
How does
what's-
this tie? Like, what if this show were to be, if it is a prequel, what ties it or what connects it to a larger
The greater
universe?
narrative. Where is
Right.
Wonder Woman slotted in here? Where it ties back to her because it has to tie back to her.
What if it ties to the world of Atlantis?
I
That'd be
mean,
good.
but my point is though is I don't understand where you guys are saying what you think the thing is, but Kareem's saying, well, how soon do we get to Diana? Like, I don't understand the
Well,
thread you're trying to
look-
pull at.
Okay. If assuming the goal is to get to the Justice League at some point,
Okay.
that is your Avengers-esque level movie or one of your goal endpoints. How long do you string along a prequel show before you produce a movie that ties back into the show? And in the end, how does that movie tie into the show? Like, are you going to jump forward and say like, oh, he's now born, she has her own movie, and we're going to work the show towards her, or we're going to work backwards from her? Like, you're going to put out this show, and how long do you go for the show? Do you go 3-4 seasons before she is born? Before people can be like, here's the payoff. This is part of the reason why we watch the show.
So you're
is to
saying
get to Wonder
regardless,
Woman.
they have to get to Diana. So that's so
I would
then
assume so. What is the point of having that show if you don't get to Diana?
building the world out like Kurosh said, like, oh, that's where you build in Atlantis. That's where you
But
build in.
we also said,
the
how
new
does it tie
gods.
into anything? Like,
No. Yeah, I'm looking at it needs to tie into something. I don't
Yeah.
necessarily mean that it has to get to Diana as like the end goal. It just I need something that ties me to why I care about
To
Themyscira.
to this
Right, and that and I'm on board with that, but I'm saying we don't have to get to Diana. Like, you keep pointing, Kareem keeps
But-
pointing back to say Diana is the end game. It's like, I don't think it
Kareem's-
is.
Kareem's pointing to the most obvious.
Yeah, I think that is
Like anyone that isn't like a huge comic book fan that's like has a passing is like, oh, that's probably what they'll introduce Wonder Woman.
I mean, again, this is speaking to the general audience, and I don't necessarily care about the general audience, I guess, is what my point is.
you have a
is-
disdain for the general audience, like the Warner Brothers does. You'd be a perfect executive there.
My point is that if you keep pitching to the lowest demographic, your expectations are so low. Like, why not aim for something better? Like,
This isn't the lowest demographic. This is just you're building an extended universe. It's got to tie in somewhere. Maybe it doesn't tie to Diana. Okay, great. It does have to tie somewhere.
right, and I'm agreeing with that. I like the idea of it ties to Atlantis. And
But
it ties
your problem
to
is
a larger world.
you're going to run into, Ken, is when you do introduce her and you don't tie her to that show, people are going to be like, what the hell is this? Where did she come from?
We introduced her in Batman 5 Superman without anything, and she's just there.
Yeah, and look
They-
how well
they
that
just-
went.
That's my point, though. Is like they clearly don't care about tying it together. So why?
But timeout. Because
What
the
they-
whole
they're saying
point
they do.
is they're restarting
they do it
because
different.
they can't. Yeah.
Are they restarting though? We've already said that they're doing Grim and Greedy without Snyder, so they're just doing the same thing. They're not restarting shit.
Well, that was my point.
I'm arguing that they're doing Grim and Gritty in a meta way to say a narrative
contrast.
of like, this is where we've been. Like the larger picture, like hopefully they execute this. Like the biggest thing is this is a big plan. This is a lot of projects. This is probably like 10 plus years. And it's like, okay, in order to get there, you have to execute on all this. And Warner Brothers, not James Gunn, but Warner Brothers tends to like, at the slightest whiff of
yeah.
cold breath, they're like, no, cut the project. Do this.
We're
So
waiting back here. Color.
if it if it goes through all this stuff, I see a potential for a larger narrative that could
Yeah.
contextualize that. It's just a matter of like, do they execute on? Do they allow him and the other guy, Peter Safran, I think is the other
But-
guy's name?
Saffron, yeah.
Let's be real though. If Superman Legacy gets made, if it's not a massive hit, they'll cut this immediately. All of this is for naught. If it doesn't like
They'll course
full
correct.
box office, but
And I think that's
it's all
I think
gone.
I think that's also something that we're going to face as just part of the problem for Warner Brothers. Period, is because they are maybe too overreactive. Period. They don't give the Kevin Feige time to build to Phase 2. They
Well,
don't
and
give.
they're fucking broke.
Yeah, well, they are and they aren't. Let's be clear. They're not hurting for money. They've got big bags of fucking money. It's just Zavlov is like, how do I make myself richer? So they've got money. Like let's not be like, oh, poor WB. Like they're fine.
No one.
No, poor WB.
Man. No, I feel bad for him. WB
No.
Frog is broke.
Well, I kind of want to springboard off of what Kareem's asking with Paradise Lost. We've now kind of talked about a lot of the projects that are, and not even all of them, but there's another character that has been on my mind that they've sort of alluded to, or not in this statement, but around it, of other characters that we'd like, or properties that we'd like to see get made. The one I'm thinking of is Lobo. I know that like Jason Momoa has kind of been like, oh, I got a call from James Gunn, and like if you know me and you know this stuff, you know that I'm a big fan of a certain character. So I'm like, oh, what else is there that we haven't seen necessarily like titled, or that you would want to see kind of brought in? Is there any specific teams or stories or people?
Yeah, I mean, I think are they going ahead with the Constantine 2 movie?
Nope.
I don't think
Yes,
I
so.
don't
cut.
know.
I think that
Did
got
it get
cut.
Cut.
What if
Yeah.
it's an Elseworld?
No, they
No,
just
I-
said not happening.
Oh,
I think
they
said
said?
it's not happening.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
they're like, no, we don't like good things anymore. We're just fucking off in other directions.
Okay.
Well, because I mean, if I don't know what the reasons for cutting it, but if I think I was mentioning it Ken as well. Well, obviously, but if they were to start over, just because Keanu Reeves is sort of getting up there in age, so to speak, and you want to if you want to do this Constantine thing for a franchise, that they get an English actor, younger one, to kind of be in the role. But I would hope this is tied into like a Zatanna or something, so you would get like a dark, I guess, witchcraft version of DC, kind of like you are getting with Scarlet Witch and Doctor Strange and stuff like that, like your magical versus.
You want to push DC in a darker realm that they haven't been in yet.
Detective Chimp. That's the only answer.
There you go.
I mean, he's
Start having fun with
is
it.
Wait, is Detective Chimp on Justice League Dark? Was he on an iteration of that?
Yeah, I think so.
I think at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Bizarro.
Because I mean,
Bizarro!
you're introducing Swamp Thing, so I thought Constantine would be in there somewhere. Because isn't that where he shows up?
What do you mean? What do you mean where he shows up?
Kinda.
Swamp
I mean,
Thing.
it's
I mean,
all.
Maybe in
No?
one
Swamp
version?
Thing.
No.
I mean,
It's
well,
it-
I don't know what you mean by shows up, because Constantine's all over the DC universe, and
He's
Swamp
run
Thing's
into-
all over the DC universe.
Constantine
They've-
shows up in a Swamp
they've had-
Thing comic, doesn't he? Like that
Yeah,
is
but
first
so does
introduction?
Batman.
They've crossed
No,
paths.
in
Yeah,
his
they've
first
crossed
introduction,
paths.
though.
Oh, I don't know if his first introduction. I'm not
No,
familiar.
I don't think. I mean, he's shown
I
up
thought it
there
was.
like because Swamp Thing ties into the green and it becomes magic, and it's okay. So here's Constantine, but
Okay. But I just think using Swamp Thing at the end of this, you could open
All
that
right.
up to magic. What are you saying, Pat?
hey, do they still in Wildcats?
They do still own Wildcats.
Ooh.
Give me
Wildcats,
Wildcats.
Wildcats.
Didn't that become canon
Yeah, it's well.
Hey, guys.
recently?
What is canon
Secret-
is a different question mark. There is
Okay.
there is a Wildcats story. There are Wildcats characters in the DC universe in the current Prime
Grifter?
universe. Grifter,
My universe.
Spartan,
Void?
my
Prime
universe.
universe.
Is Void.
Spartan's
Void
in there? He made it?
Who
What about
Void's
Voodoo?
there? Who Voodoo? I think Voodoo. I think most of them are there. I know Grifter is for sure. Team 7's there.
So
Someone
how
makes
do we
up the
get to
muscle
Deathmate?
guy.
Because that's where I'm going, guys. I'm just trying to guess a Deathmate. When do they
Deathmate or
buy
Death
that?
Blow? The character Death Blow or Deathmate?
No,
The
Deathmate.
miniseries.
Deathmate,
miniseries.
the failed miniseries where Void has sex with Solar. Yes, that's where I'm going.
Oh, it's
Oh, this is all part of the Themyscira timeline. We'll get to it. We'll get to it.
By the way, Kareem is right. The first appearance of Constantine is in Swamp Thing, number 37.
Oh, good job, Curry.
Boom. Points on the board.
I just because he's existed in Vertigo for so
Right,
long
right.
separate.
I
didn't.
mean, Kareem
I
did
don't-
work at a comic store for years and years, so it just makes total sense.
But we're appealing to the wider audiences who don't know that.
Yeah.
Like Ken.
Again.
Who would you
Um,
like to see, Ken? And don't you go with the Bat family.
Kiss my ass. No.
I'd like to see Rick Dason.
It was a
Who
comic
do you
by
got?
the comic of a little known spy by the name of Grayson. I'll defer to Pat for a moment because I'd have to think of
Did I
what.
really stump you?
Well, because here's the thing though, I don't want to see any. I don't want DC in their current form to do Batman and Nightwing because in their current form they're gonna make Bruce Wayne fall in love with Barbara Gordon, which I don't like. Like that's kind of the current, like a lot of media's push that, and I'm like, no, that's his best friend's daughter. That's weird and icky. No, like Jim Gordon's
Yeah,
daughter.
I
no.
agree.
I'm
also coming to the realization that Batman is a robot. Plain and simple. And I think people are I feel like writers are finding it easier to not give him any emotion and to like write stuff around him. Like he's, again, just a robot.
It depends on the writer. I think there's definitely writers who
I
give him a
guess.
heart, and I think that he can be done well. I just don't think I don't know. I have no
Okay.
faith in the current. I still have no faith in the current DC and movie administration. Like I just don't see them producing anything of quality that I really enjoy in the live action space. There's a lot of animated stuff that I think is great. Like Young Justice is probably one of my all-time favorite series, so I will always speak highly of that. By the way, we completely didn't talk about Blue Beetle, which has the kid from Cobra Kai, and we just went right past that. I realized
Well, because that's all before the gods and monster stuff. That's already slated. That stuff doesn't count.
but we haven't seen him at all. This is part of the thing too of like saying like, oh yeah,
Stuff doesn't count.
it's a whole new universe, except it's not. And you're getting like this kid didn't even get a chance.
You're filibustering for your answer.
Hey, man.
Your insect love.
Like he's stalling. He's thinking of stories and characters.
Can we get
Well,
Can we
yeah, I
get
mean,
Connor
Blue Beetle
Kent?
could be good.
Connor Kent
I like
in
Connor
the leather
Kent.
jacket?
That'd be kind of fun.
I like it, but considering like where he's tied into his beginning, I mean, are we just gonna do Death of Superman and then Funeral for a Friend?
If we're doing Legacy, might as well.
then I guess yeah, we're gonna go with Connor.
The
'Cause
movie's literally called Superman Legacy. He's got to die.
that's fair enough. I do like Jonathan Kent though, so I do like stories that they currently have for him. I do like some other characters in the Marvel because we're also gonna get Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow.
Yeah,
Right?
Woman of Tomorrow.
Yeah, the
And he
depressing
says
Supergirl.
it's largely based on the Tom King's his recent run.
Yeah,
Floating Island Girl.
So
Again, another dark and gritty one where people just keep dying. And then she shows up to Earth. I'm like, yeah, why?
Can somebody get DC writers on Prozac?
it's not the DC writers though,
Well,
'cause there's
I'm-
plenty
I'm-
of stories of hope in the comics. There's
thing
brightness
is-
in the comics.
I think it really depends on how they film because I think on papers, a lot of this, it can be written in a Snyder way. It can be written in I think Peacemaker was bloody and graphic, but it wasn't exactly dark. Like it was dark
No, it was a
humor.
comedy.
It was very
Yeah,
bright,
Lana.
so
but
it's like
also bright in colors and tones. Like he was constantly a positive character,
Yeah.
even when he was being an a-hole. But he was yes,
Dude, I didn't mean to put your father in prison.
Then why'd you put him there, you fat fuck?
Because I couldn't think of anybody else.
What about Ariana Grande or Drake?
What?
Brad Pitt or Payne Stewart or Doug the Pug? Khloe Kardashian, the Red Tiger from Voltron.
I know. I see what you're saying.
So I'm just I don't want them. I almost don't want them to go in the other direction, like a like a rebound and go. Let's do it the Marvel way, where let's insert jokes.
As Ken puts it, bloodless Marvel. Yeah.
Yeah, like I want that to not be like, because then I'll just be comparing
Panther.
it all the time to like, okay, now
they
you're
hired-
now you're just trying to be Marvel in a very direct way, and I'm like, just find something in the middle somewhere, like that makes sense. Like, be true to what you're gonna do.
They
Without
hired
being
James
gritty.
Gunn to run it, right?
Yeah, but he's done like more of
Slither?
well, I'm thinking of like he's done
Super.
he's done Guardians. Like it varies. Like there's depending on the project, how to what degree he does it. So
Why did they hire James Gunn?
because they really like Slither.
because he can make teams that you don't think will succeed become box office hits.
They want.
Nope,
They wanted
nope.
Brightburn too.
I do not agree with that because Guardians of the Galaxy was. We can go back to Comic Core and insert a clip here where we talk about Annihilation and how the Guardians of the Galaxy were a hit at that time. So don't tell me that they were.
But to the wider audiences, Ken.
fuck the
Yeah,
wider
they
audience.
were-
I'm tired of this shit.
Hey, what about the executive? Mic off. These are inside conversations the public should know.
My point being is that to say like, oh, characters who couldn't, that people didn't have faith in. It's like people who didn't know of them didn't have faith in them. But if you have the right writer behind them, these characters can be good. Also, there's different iterations of Guardians, and you didn't do the Charlie 27 one. You brought them in as like sub characters on the second movie. Guardians of the Galaxy had hit stories and were characters that were working together.
It's
in the
stories to
comics.
who though, Ken?
To comic book readers.
Exactly. He went for a much larger audience and nailed it.
Yeah, but he already had. My point is, he already had the structure built. He already had the team kind of like, oh, piecemeal together. Like I don't have to. He chose the better of the two teams and put his spin on it. So he was already
Yeah,
working
but not
within.
not for the broader audience though. They had
But
no
he
idea.
already- They already saw that they worked though, and again, the broader artists can
saw
go
that?
fuck themselves. I don't care. Like everyone's like, oh, well, what about the? I don't care.
Okay, Ken.
If I
Let's put
give
it this
you-
way: if you keep telling the broader audience to go fuck themselves, we don't get projects.
No, that doesn't. No, here's the thing. If you tell me like, oh, well, we want the broader audience to know who the Justice League is. This is the same discussion for the Avengers. Oh, Iron Man's an unknown, so we like this isn't a tested character. Yes, he is. He's an existing character in the Marvel universe. The Avengers have worked for years, and then saying like, oh man, they really like hit it out of the park with the Avengers. They did, but like they were already a team that existed, and we had stories that were out there, so you weren't
You
working
keep
from
saying
scratch.
you have to differentiate the royal we from the
I
comic
don't.
book reader we.
I don't.
Yeah, you do.
I'm talking to me, to the four of us. We had stories.
Yeah,
So
but
to
I
say,
think
let
I
me
think in
finish
order
real
to
quick.
get that backing, you need something, and it's like it. They went with Iron Man, for instance. It's like we're taking a guy who, in some aspects, they could look at it on paper and be like, he's a drunk guy. He's all these things. Why is he going to be our lead for the direction we want to take a larger project, cohesive like thing? And they went with like, okay, we got some notable actors that killed it. We got directors that we didn't go with we didn't go with unknowns. We went with more knowns. And what I'm saying with the known part, to your point, I'm not fully dismissing what you're saying about the Guardians. There is marketability there, I think, from that big picture kind of corporate standpoint. But I think also that James Gunn has done on different scales for his projects, like make you care about certain things that you wouldn't normally think you would care about. I think that combination was a recipe for success.
That's fair. My main point is that he wasn't like creating these characters out of the ether. These were characters that had existed and had built into to the degree to which the Guardians themselves were already an established team. He didn't reach into just all back old comic book lore and pull out, okay, I'm gonna grab Darkhawk and I'm gonna grab Moon Knight and I'm gonna grab Princess Power Princess over here. Like he didn't like just form this team out of nothing. It was already out there. So to say that, oh yeah, he's creating this thing out of unknown. It's like, yeah, they're not completely unknowns. These are existing properties. that he's adapting. So I guess that's where my
But all
my
of this
frustration
discussion is existing properties that have been adapted.
right.
None of this is new. None of these are new creative characters. So now it
Correct.
depends on who you pick and how you adapt it, right? Is that the discussion?
Yeah.
So my point is to sell hundreds of millions of tickets, he had to basically, I mean, these characters, at least as far as the general public is concerned, weren't, at least at that point, to selling that. You weren't just going to say, hey, you know what? We're not going to introduce Robert Downey Jr. We're not going to introduce the Avengers. We're not going to lead into this bigger universe. We're going to start off with the Guardians of the Galaxy as the Marvel Universe. People are going to be like, what the fuck is that? Who are these people? People knew Iron Man. People knew Hulk. They may not have known Thor to a certain degree, but they knew some of the foundational stuff. For the Guardians, I would say the large audience didn't know that.
But even beyond that, because those other movies had been made, there was goodwill towards Marvel, which allowed them to bring in characters that are lesser known and give it to a director that could tell a good, entertaining story. They had Iron Man wasn't the most well known. He was a B-list Avenger when that movie was made. Iron Man, it was actually at that point he was just an asshole, if memory serves. But he had enough name recognition. They made a good movie, and that, by the virtue of them making a good movie, allowed them to expand and bought them the goodwill they needed. What happened with DC? They made a bunch of turd sandwiches with better known characters, and we went, you know what? Hard pass. Thanks, though. I don't need to go watch Green Lantern. I will instead stick things in my eye.
Man, they really fumbled the Green Lantern.
Fumble? They have to actually have the ball to fumble it.
Yeah, they were playing the wrong sport.
Yeah, brought a hockey stick, a baseball glove.
You guys said football, right? I mean, American or no? What are you doing? We're white. This is Ted Lasso. This is different.
So I glue balls. To
Oh my God,
hands
Ted
like
Lasso
soccer
should be
balls?
I want Ted Lasso to be a lantern now.
You know who? You know what? He's hope. He's blue.
Yeah.
He's believe. That's his. He just makes a little believe sign with his ring and just.